good morning. My name is Andrea Warren. Thank you for joining the Housing and Community Development Department's virtual community meeting on the Draft Action Plan for Disaster Recovery, the 2024 Derecho and Hurricane Beryl. The agenda for today's meeting includes speaker introduction, director's opening remarks, presentation, public hearing, question and answer segment, and closing remarks. If you need a Spanish translator for this meeting, call in audio only at 1-936-755-1521 and the user ID 716-289-504#. Or to join us on Microsoft Teams, please use the link https://bit.ly/dr2024-ph25s. If you have any questions that you would like to have addressed during the question and answer segment, please type them in the chat. We will start with opening remarks from Director Nichols. Then I will take you through the presentation. Then Alan Issa will also join us to moderate the public hearing segment of the meeting where you can provide your comments. This will be followed by the question and answer segment with Director Nichols. Now, I would like to introduce the Housing and Community Development Department Director, Mike Nichols. Director Nichols?
Thank you, Andrea. I'm Mike Nichols, and I'm the City of Houston Housing Community Development Department Director. I'm thrilled, and our whole team is thrilled to have you join us today for our first virtual meeting. We have 2 additional virtual meetings to ensure widespread involvement. And I want to say here, and I'll say it a couple more times, your voice plays an important role in shaping the future of Houston's recovery and resilience efforts. Our mission at HCD is to make investments that serve Houstonians' housing and community needs and build a more vibrant, equitable city by creating safe, resilient homes and communities where residents can thrive. Today, we'll walk through our draft action plan for disaster recovery in response to the 2024 Derecho, Hurricane Beryl, and Kingwood flood, and we truly appreciate your time and input into this vital process. Again, we're listening closely to you, and we will make changes where necessary. This is a draft of our plan, but again, your voice is very important. So thank you very much for being here and participating fully. Andrea?
Thank you, Director Nichols. So we'll move into the presentation now.
As we begin, I'm on slide 5, is that right? To make sure let's go to the next slide. This is a slide about the Derecho, which we've talked about. As we begin, it's important to understand the context behind this plan. The 2024 Derecho and Hurricane Beryl revealed intensified existing challenges in the city's disaster preparedness and response systems. Through our assessments, we in the city identified several critical capability gaps, including 1, the need for emergency power generation to support critical public facilities. 2nd, strengthen disaster response and public safety operations.
My camera on, Matthew.
3rd, improve pre-disaster vegetation management. And 4th, more effective post-disaster debris removal operations. If you remember those times, it was a significant issue. We had trucks full of debris and an inefficient way of doing away with those debris. We had problems with vegetation management, and there was a time when we had inadequate public safety, vehicles, and ambulances. And finally, as many of you remember, the key problem during those times was the loss of power, and including power in our most critical public facilities. To help address these challenges, Congress made a direct allocation of funding federal funding to the city of Houston. This approach allows for the most efficient and targeted deployment of recovery resources. And our draft action plan outlines how we intend to use this funding and to strengthen preparedness and build long-term resilience for our communities. Next slide, please. When recovery needs exceeds the funding available, as they have every time we've had a disaster, determining how to allocate limited resources becomes a difficult yet necessary task. And that's where we are today. Obviously, the funds that the federal government directed to us cannot meet every need there is. And we had to make decisions, and that's what we're doing today. And that's what this draft plan really does. It helps us make those decisions. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows that there is no big check that shows up for the city of Houston. These funds must be spent in a way that the federal government under housing and urban development thinks it should be spent, and for items that they approve. And then if we spend it that way using city funds, they will reimburse us. Secondly, we do take in community input and damage assessments, but several factors have guided our decision making. First of all, looking at this holistically, going back and looking at other city disasters. Historically, the city's disaster recovery effort from 2008 to 2021 has focused heavily on housing. In fact, more than 80% of our previous federal allocation, totaling nearly $775 million, was dedicated to housing-related programs. While housing remains a top priority, one key lesson from the most recent events, Hurricane Beryl and the Derecho, is that we cannot overlook the city's own capacity to respond and recover effectively. Without investments in our infrastructure and disaster operations, the entire city and every resident remains at risk. Our approach in this draft plan reflects a broader and more balanced view that considers both direct community needs and systemic improvements that benefit the city as a whole. On slide 7, housing continues to be a foundational element of our long-term recovery strategy and the city's overall funding strategy. It must be noted that over the next 5 years, we expect to receive nearly $106 million from our regular funding streams, including annual CDBG and home allocations to support housing initiatives. In addition, we are proud partners with the Houston Housing Authority to help secure a $15 million Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. This funding will support the redevelopment of CUNY homes and drive investment in the surrounding third world community. From past disaster recovery allocations, we are going to spend, in the next month, we're going to spend nearly $20 million from disaster 17, the Harvey hurricane, and that funding will be used to launch the next round of our Home Buyers Assistance Program, or HPAP 2.0. In addition to this $20 million in the next 30 days, we will also launch a program spending more than $40 million in disaster relief 21 funding to support home repair and reimbursement programs. Again, that is $40 million out of the $50 million that we spent on home repairs from the Winter Storm Uri. Both the Home Buyer Assistance Program and the Home Repair and Reimbursement Program are focused on helping Houstonians remain safe and stable in their own homes. As we move forward, we'll continue identifying strategic opportunities to collaborate and leverage additional funding. Our goal remains the same, to prioritize housing needs while maximizing every dollar for the greatest impact. I'll now pass this on to Andrea and also look forward to hearing what you have to say during the public comment session.
Thank you, Director Nichols. I appreciate you. So now we will move into the presentation for today. In 2024, Houston experienced two major disasters that significantly impacted our communities. These events tested our systems, our infrastructure, and our communities, but they also strengthened our commitment to resilience and recovery. On May 16th and 17th, 2024, a powerful straight-line windstorm, also called the Derecho, struck the city. The storm, which included wind gusts exceeding 100 miles per hour, knocked down power poles, shattered windows and skyscrapers, and left nearly 1 million residents and businesses without power. Nearly 555,000 were still without electricity 24 hours later. Many public services, schools, and businesses experienced temporary closures. Tragically, 8 people died. Hurricane Beryl, a Category 1 storm, hit Houston from July the 7th through the 9th, 2024, causing severe flooding and property damage. Hurricane Beryl caused widespread damage to Houston's powerful infrastructure, leading to over 2.7 million people being without power. The outages impacted hospitals, schools, and businesses, with some residents without power for more than 12 days. And the sweltering heat, which led to at least 7 deaths attributed to heat stroke. The storm also toppled transmission lines, uprooted trees, snapped branches, causing extensive damage to power lines and utility poles. Let's review the disaster declaration process. Both the 2024 Derecho and Hurricane Beryl received a presidential disaster declaration. These maps indicate the areas impacted by the respective disaster and the types of assistance available from FEMA. As we look at these images, you can see the devastating impact these storms has had on our city. Here are other examples of devastating impact from the Derecho and Hurricane Beryl. In the wake of recent natural disasters like the Derecho and Hurricane Beryl, communities across the region have not only been tested, but the strength of the storms, but also by the scale of the damage. Infrastructure was compromised and essential services were disrupted. Disasters can expose vulnerabilities, but they also can create opportunities to transform and become more resilient. But before we talk about allocation, let's review the disaster recovery phases. Immediate response focuses on actions to save lives, protect property, and address immediate needs. This includes search and rescue, medical care, providing emergency shelter, food and water, assessing damage, and restoring critical services. Short-term response begins once the immediate crisis has stabilized, and it includes debris removal, temporary housing, and restoring essential community functions. Long-term recovery is more extensive. It involves repairing infrastructure, supporting displaced families, rebuilding homes, and restoring the local economy. Finally, mitigation is an ongoing effort to reduce future risk. This includes strengthening our building codes, investing in resilient infrastructure, and helping communities prepare for future disasters. On January 16, 2025, HUD announced new allocations of the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, or CDBGDR, funding for disasters that occurred in 2023 and 2024. CDBGDR funding is provided after a presidentially declared disaster and appropriated by Congress. It's administered by HUD to support long-term recovery efforts and build resilience in affected communities. The city will receive a direct allocation of $314.6 million from HUD to support local disaster recovery and resilience efforts following the 2024 Derecho and Hurricane Beryl. Let's move into the grant requirements. To receive the CDBG DR24 funding allocated to the City of Houston, there are several requirements. Funding must be spent in the most impacted and distressed areas, or MID. The entire City of Houston has been deemed a MID by HUD. 70% of all the activities must provide benefits to low and moderate income individuals. Activities must address the impact of the disaster either directly or indirectly. HUD also refers to this requirement as a tieback, where all the activities except for mitigation must tie back to impacts from the Derecho or Hurricane Beryl. Finally, activities must be eligible under CDBG. Eligible activities include planning, administration, housing, infrastructure, public services, economic revitalization, and mitigation. Let's talk about the application requirements. To access CDBG DR funding, HUD requires grantees, like the City of Houston, to follow a prescribed application process. This ensures that recovery plans are comprehensive, transparent, and aligned with federal guidelines. HUD also sets strict timelines for the submission of the action plans and related documents, which guide how quickly the city can begin implementing recovery and programs and projects. Let's review some of the key milestones and deadline dates associated with the application process as follows. We have the universal notice, which was issued on January the 8th, 2025, providing new guidance on the application development and the submission process for disaster recovery funding. Federal Register was issued on January 16, 2025, which provided details about the city's allocation of disaster recovery funding for 2024 disasters. The city submitted a request for extension on March the 6th, 2025, which was approved on the same day. HUD was in the process of further revising guidance that would impact the application process and the action plan for disaster recovery content. The city wanted to ensure there was access to all available resources and sought additional time as a result. A revised universal notice memo was issued on March the 19th, 2025, and this changed various elements of the process, timeline, and the action plan requirements. The city received HUD technical assistance from the local field office and HUD disaster recovery staff on March 24th and 25th, 2025. A proposed budget was presented at the City of Houston Budget and Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting on June the 3rd, 2025. As required, the city's application for disaster recovery funding must have the City Council's approval prior to submission to HUD. This item is anticipated to be presented to City Council on June the 5th, 2025. The current HUD submission deadline, according to the extension the city received on March the 6th, is July the 20th, 2025. Once the action plan is submitted to HUD, HUD will have 45 days to review and approve it by September the 3rd, 2025. Let's move into the phases of disaster recovery. These dates are also a part of the CDBG DR grant process and follows and allows three key phases. Phase 1 includes the development and submission of the action plan for disaster recovery. Grantees are to submit an action plan within 90 days from the date of applicability. However, the City of Houston received an extension until July the 20th. During Phase 2, grantees must submit documentation for the certification of financial controls, procurement processes, and adequate procedures for grant management within 45 days of submission of the final action plan on September the 3rd, 2025. During Phase 3, grantees must create and finalize policies and procedures depending on program type. Add 1 year or 18 months from the applicability date, January 21st, 2026, unless an extension is granted. Now let's discuss the required components of the action plan itself. There is the executive summary, the unmet needs assessment, mitigation needs assessment, the grantee's proposed use of funds and detailed grant budget, showing how resources will be allocated, information on the distribution of funds and specific program details, general information about the city's recovery efforts. The citizen participation plan is included and outlines how the public is involved in engagement, comments, public hearings, and how citizen complaints are handled. In addition, procedures for modifications to the action plan as needs evolve are included. Finally, the plan includes requirements for ongoing performance reports to track progress. Let's move into the budget and the activities. Now that we reviewed the plan requirements, we'll move on. Before we take a look at the proposed budget, it is important to note that HUD or the HUD threshold requirements that must be considered for CDBG grants. No more than 5% of the total allocation can be budgeted towards administration. 15% of the total allocation can be budgeted towards planning. The city has only allocated 0.6 for planning. 15% of the total allocation can be budgeted towards public services. The city has budgeted more than 15% for public services and will be seeking a waiver from HUD. Now let's move into the actual proposed budget. The disaster recovery budget includes, the slide shows, the proposed allocation of CDBG-DR funds totaling just over $314 million, strategically invested across key recovery and resilience priorities. $200,000 is budgeted for planning activities. Costs may include staff time associated with assessing the impacts from these disasters, conducting needs assessments, fulfilling citizen engagement requirements, and developing the action plan for disaster recovery and related documents. $15.7 million is budgeted for administration. Costs may include staff time and overhead related to the general management, oversight, coordination, and implementation of the CDBG-DR grant, as well as the cost of administrative services performed under third-party contracts or agreements, such as general legal services, accounting services, and audit services. $151.3 million is budgeted for Power Generation Resilience Program. Costs may include engineering, design services, purchase and installation of natural gas generators, related modifications to facility infrastructure, including resilient platform construction, establishing power connection switching mechanisms, and other specific modifications, ongoing operations, maintenance considerations, and activity delivery. $8.8 million is budgeted for FEMA Public Assistance Local Cost Share. Costs may include local cost share for CDBG-DR eligible FEMA Public Assistance approved projects and activity delivery. The Emergency Response Public Safety Program is budgeted at $56.5 million. Costs under this program may include the purchase of emergency response and public safety equipment such as ambulances and high water vehicles, and mobile communications equipment and activity delivery. $41 million is budgeted for homeless services to support the city's goal to expand outreach. Shelter, streamline housing access for homeless to move individuals experiencing homelessness into housing with supportive services. $32.8 million is budgeted for the debris repository program. Costs for this project include land acquisition, site preparation related to construction and or modifications, security measures, and activity delivery. And lastly, $8.25 million is budgeted for the vegetation management and debris removal program. Costs may include purchasing vegetation management, debris removal equipment, and vehicles, vegetation management, debris removal public services, and activity delivery. Okay, let's move into the public engagement. Your voice helps shape resilience and recovery efforts. It does. Let's walk through the different ways that you can participate in public engagement. The City of Houston is committed to a transparent and inclusive recovery planning process. Our resident and agency survey is open today, and we encourage everyone to share their experiences and insights. To participate in our resident agency survey, you can scan the QR codes displayed here on the screen. If you do not have access to a phone, no problem. The survey is also available online at our website at www.houstontx.gov/hcdrecovery/public-hearing/. Let's review our public meetings that we are offering for the public. We will be holding 2 additional virtual public meetings, just like today. Our second meeting will take place on Thursday, June the 12th, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. The third meeting will be held on Tuesday, June the 17th, 2025, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. The meeting details, including how to join online or call in, are available on our website at www.houstontx.gov/hcdrecovery/public-hearing. There will be both an English and Spanish meeting options available. Okay, the time has come. Let's hear from you. Now we'd like to open the floor for your comments. This public hearing segment is your opportunity to share feedback on today's presentation and help shape recovery efforts moving forward. Now I'd like to turn things over to Alan Issa, who will be moderating the public hearing session. He will guide us and help us ensure everyone has a choice to be heard, or has the opportunity rather to be heard. Alan?
Great. Thank you, Andrea, for a great presentation. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Issa, and now it's time to begin the public hearing segment of the agenda. This is your opportunity to provide your public comments to us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. Before we begin, I would like to go over some ground rules. First, when you are called to speak, please state your first and last name for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to provide their public comment. There will be a countdown timer on the screen to assist you with the timing. Yielding to another person is not allowed. Yielding time to another person is not allowed. I also want to note that the testimony is recorded and transcribed. Also, please keep in mind that this is not a Q&A session. There will be a Q&A session after this segment. Please keep this session to public comments only. Lastly, summaries with responses will be included as part of our final action plan submission to HUD. For those of you on Teams who would like to make a public comment, please use the raised hand icon, either at the top of your screen or next to your name in the participants section. For those on the phone, I will call on you after the first wave of comments are made. Finally, I will call the names of the people I see in the order that I see them. Once again, we kindly request that each commentator state their first and last name for the record and provide a public comment on the draft action plan for disaster recovery 2024. Next slide. Now let's begin. If you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand icon at this time. Great, thank you. The first speaker will be Emily Ablin. Please unmute yourself and begin your public comment.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having this presentation. My name is Emily Ablin. I'm with Brinshaw Development, and prior to joining Brinshaw, 3 years ago, I was at New Hope Housing working in development for 17 years. So I've got quite a bit of housing development experience, in particular serving those most vulnerable in our population. And I think one of the most important things to note is that the city of Houston was, had the ability to put the largest number of affordable housing units, new construction housing units on the ground through the Hurricane Harvey disaster relief funds, acknowledging that these major storms really impact the most vulnerable citizens with the greatest impact to their lives and to their homes, and creates quite a bit of housing insecurity. So channeling these funds toward housing development is really critical in terms of disaster recovery, because we've got to help those who have been impacted the most and have the least capacity to recover their own families after the storm. And frankly, I would expect that the city of Houston does handle infrastructure issues, but handles it out of its own fiscal budget and uses these opportunities, particularly in a climate, these funding opportunities, particularly in a climate where so many soft sources have dried up and housing is getting more and more difficult to develop. And meanwhile, costs of living and costs of housing are severely burdening the citizens of this city. And so I really think it is imperative that the city of Houston relook at how it intends to spend these funds that are coming through and allocate a hefty portion of these toward the development of housing, because unfortunately, there is very little that is getting put on the ground since those Harvey units were delivered. There's very little that is opening for residents of this community to be able to be affordably and safely housed in a new housing complexes that are well cared for and are what our citizens deserve. And thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much for your comment. Next up, Tahir Charles, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Seems like you are on hold, and we can come back to you later. Next up, I will call on Jacob Clementich. You may start your public comment. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the next person. Thomas Moulton, please unmute yourself and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, sorry, Jacob. Yes, Mr. Clementich.
Okay, what I want to talk to you about is this. I think that the homeless population is getting too much aid money. Sure, they're citizens of Houston, but they don't pay their fair share of property and sales taxes. And so we should think of other places that need help, and such as NRG Park. The stadium was damaged by the Hurricane Beryl, and well, who would like to work in a damaged facility? No one would, I would think. And then who would like to be entertained in a damaged facility? No one, I think. And so I think that it's good to have the homeless population, but to everybody, they need to do their own fair share, and that is that they need to do their fair share. Like it gets pretty hot working at NRG Park and the toll booths where the cars come by. You feel the heat from the car's exhaust and the engines, and you have to deal with the sunlight of the sun, and gets pretty hot. And so I think that this should be changed otherwise to a better way. Okay,
Great.
that's that.
Thank you very much for your comment.
All right, perfect. Thomas Moton is here.
Yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't remember the second speaker that we had, the lady with the development background that asked for the city to maybe look at allocating funds in a separate manner for new development. But I do have a question: is how much will the city actually provide for the 230 million in the unmet needs of already damaged homes already?
Great. Thank you very much for your comment. Once again, this is a public comment, so Q&A session will follow. If you have any questions, please make sure to ask in the chat so we can address those Q&A questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move back to Mr. Tahir Charles. If you would like to make a public comment, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Hey, my name is Tahir Charles. I'm driving right now, but my statement is we definitely need money for the housing portion of this proposed draft. I made this opinion very clear at City Hall last week. And also another statement is I see there's monies allocated to buy ambulance and I want to say police units and things of that nature. We need to identify if the funds that are not used, what will those funds be routed to? That's just some things that came up to my head, and also for the homeless population. Once all that money is not used, where will the remaining portion of those funds go? I know this is not the Q&A session, but however, I think a plan that does not include housing is missing a key component. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up, Ms. Blackwell, if you could please unmute yourself and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Yes. My name is Miss Blackwell, here from Houston, Texas. I was very encouraged when I heard you a comment I want to mention about funds being allocated for the homeless. And I say it's very distressing to see all this everywhere, all over Houston and Harris County. I'm just curious, are y'all gonna be having people to like reach out, just actually going up to these areas, going to these people, meeting them where they are? Like, do they need assistance? We need, we're coming to help you get off the streets. It's just, like, there's a lot of them. They just need a place to have a roof over their head. It's beyond just a shelter, just their own space, their own place, an apartment or whatever. Is anybody going to be just going to where they are, just scouting out all over this Harris County, going to where they are? Do you need, you need assistance? We ready to just put you in an apartment, follow us, come with us. We're going to see to it. Y'all going, that far to reach out for them. So that's my public comment.
Great. Thank you very much for your public comment. Next up, Morena Gloria, if you could please unmute yourself and begin your public comment.
Yes, in reviewing the plan, I noticed that a lot of the generator dollars or the infrastructure dollars are going to be included. My question is, how is the allocation of those dollars going to be released? And I know this is just a public comment. I will ask it again in the Q&A, but I am hoping that the generators will be put in public-facing facilities that receive the brunt of disaster activity, meaning on the east end of Harris County, the east end of the city of Houston, through the north side of city of Houston, because we want to make sure that those multi-service centers, those police departments, and those fire departments in the east end are serviced. The second comment has to do with the allocation of dollars to the solid waste resource, and I forget the description that y'all had in the plan, but I'm not clear, and I guess, I'm just wondering why we would use disaster recovery money for that. I know during a disaster, there is a lot of debris that's collected, but outside of a disaster time period, how are those, I'm interested to know about the use of those facilities outside of a disaster. So to allocate dollars for the X number of days during a disaster, even if it's, a month or two thereafter, what happens with those resources for solid waste when a non-disaster season? I'm just a little concerned about that. I'd like to, get more information about that, but thank you for allowing me to make a comment.
Thank you very much. If anybody else is interested in making a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature. Yes, Laolu, please begin your public comment. Unmute yourself and please begin your public comment.
Good afternoon, Director Nichols, to the HCDD staff. My comments today are in respect to a comprehensive analysis of what has been proposed to date, as many other commenters have observed, just does not seem to really address a fundamental need that I think most Houstonians have expressed. We've seen it through some of the Kinder Institute surveys. Housing has become the preeminent concern of Houstonians. This has been relevant the last 2 to 3 years. Disaster recovery is a part of it, but when we are in a phase where I would say the city of Houston has really made tremendous progress in terms of its housing programs, specifically on the single family side. There's a lot of momentum there. When you look at the aftermath of Beryl and Derecho, the largest damage was to housing. And so to have, over $300 million and no dollars out of that projected for housing was deeply concerning. I think it would be a missed opportunity. This isn't about what's a priority versus not a priority. We recognize that all of these different things are priorities, but we cannot subjugate housing as a priority relative to these other priority areas. So I think it's important that we really take a look at the pots of money. Yes, the need to buy generators. We acknowledge that certain facilities could use that, but it just seems like a missed opportunity to have nearly half of these funds being proposed strictly for generators. Generators don't
So
house
your
people.
time is up. Sorry about
I
that.
never saw the countdown clock, but thank you. I'll conclude my comments that we just need to have housing dollars allocated. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Priscilla Argueta, please unmute yourself and begin your public comment.
Hi, good morning. My public comment has to do with I'm looking at the City of Houston's agenda for this week, specifically looking at item number 6 in reference to HCD 25 to 35, the amended home repair program guideline. I noticed that there is an amendment there that makes it a little bit more difficult for homeowners who have not been a homeowner for 5 years or more. And I feel that's a little insensitive in nature because we have hurricanes and storms every year. And I think that's an oversight for Houstonians. So I'm just trying to understand where that is coming from, if we can review that in the Q&A. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. If you're an audio caller who has not made a public comment, please press *6 to unmute yourself and give your comment. Oh, I see another hand up. Yes. Evan Dominguez, please unmute yourself and give your public comment. Evan Dominguez?
You're unmuted now, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hi. Good afternoon. I was just kind of thinking about, like, I had to take a little bit of a walk from the middle of the conversation, but from what I've heard from all the other public comments, there's focus on single-family homes. I was wondering if there's also focus on multifamily homes, as well as like low-income housing or any like apartment complexes or townhomes like that. If some of the funds will go to like kind of fixing those types of units too, because we do have a lot of Houstonians that live in those areas, especially within the city limits. And if there's going to be a focus on kind of allocating funds to, specific infrastructure projects, well, not projects, but like kind of like maintenance, like our pipes, our public utilities, like sewage, anything like that, that might have been damaged from the hurricane and the Derecho. If just those have been considered as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See another hand up. Priscilla Argueta again. You please unmute yourself and begin your public comment. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Priscilla.
Oh, there it goes. Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. I forgot to add a second part to my first comment. Looking at the same agenda item for today's public session. Also looking at the same language, amending item number 3. It also ends with that the methodology to compose pricing also changes the language to market values. And I think that's also another oversight, as the appraisal values is a little different. And I know here in Texas, especially in Houston, those numbers maybe should be averaged together instead of one or the other. As we know, market value can be determined unfairly as we allow businesses to buy out houses, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the market value of the current market. That was my only comment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. If there are no more public comments, we will now proceed to the Q&A segment. Thank you very much for all your public comments.
I think we had one other person come on, wanted a question.
Yes, I
Hi,
do see.
Gloria.
Ms. Moreno, if you can unmute yourself.
Gloria, you can unmute yourself.
Try *6.
Looks like she's still unable to unmute herself.
Gloria, if you like, you can type in your comment in the chat section or Q&A.
Hi, Gloria, and all other commenters. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to make a comment. We're going to give some alternative options at the end of the presentation, and there will also be a question and answer segment. If you're shy of giving those comments in other methods and ways, you can most definitely put those comments in the chat. Okay, we're going to move on to the next segment, which I think is a segment that everyone is eagerly anticipating, and that is our question and answer segment. Thank you to everyone who shared their comments. We'll now move into that segment where we'll address any questions you have about the action plan details presented here today. So before we go into our question and answer segment, let's review some ground rules for this segment. Let's go over quickly to have a smooth and productive question and answer. If you have not already done so and would like to ask a question, please type it in the chat. Director Nichols and other members of the HCD team will respond to your questions. If follow-up is needed, we will ask that you send your contact information to hcdplanning@houstontx.gov. No worries, we will give all of this information to you at the end of our presentation. So we will go with the first question. Director Nichols.
Thank you. The question is?
So this is Amy Connolly. I'm Chief of Staff and work with Mike Nichols. So I'm going to be voicing the questions out loud that have come through the chat in the order they came. So the first question was from Jacob Klimatich. He asked, do homeless people pay property taxes?
Mr. Klimatich, as you know, I've worked closely with the homeless response system, and the answer is no. Generally, people pay property taxes. You have to own property to pay them directly, or if you're a renter, it's often rolled into the cost of your rent. So if you're literally homeless, then the individuals are not paying property taxes.
So just a reminder, if you've got a question, please put it in the meeting chat, okay? And we'll ask for state the question out loud, and Mike will answer. So the second question came from Charles Tahir, and his question was, what about the unmet needs of existing damages from past storms?
Thank you, Mr. Tahir. When obviously in other storms, we have weighed heavily toward housing, more than 75% of the dollars of other storms have gone either to housing repair or multifamily housing development and repair. In the last storm before these two, Winter Storm Uri, 40 of the $50 million of the federal funding went to housing repair or repayment to people who had paid dollars on their own and had not been reimbursed. So historically, it has gone heavily to housing repair. What we saw particularly in these two storms, the Derecho and Hurricane Beryl, yes, there was housing that was damaged. but we saw this as an opportunity to fix some of the most important items in the city and that will protect us in the event of other storms, particularly the loss of power generation. One of the things that was so disturbing about the Derecho and Hurricane Beryl is how close we were to losing our sewage system and our water delivery system. This would have impacted literally millions of people and would have stopped the flow of patients in and out of our hospitals. And so that's why the decision has been made that this plan and the proposal in this plan is to have so many dollars go into power generation, resilience, and other items such as the public safety, resilience, our water vehicles, ambulances, and of course homelessness, because there is a cost when we have a disaster that people experiencing homelessness either go into shelters and emergency shelters, which is high cost, or sadly they are killed by the storms. And one of the things we're looking to always is how to protect the most vulnerable among us.
Thank you. So the next question is from Gloria Moreno, and she asked, will you be releasing the slides to meeting participants?
So yes, I turned around, but yes, we will be distributing the slides. They'll be available on our website, but yes, we will do that. Thank you, Ms. Marina.
Question is from Thomas Mo. He asked, how much of the $230 million will the city provide for unmet need for the damaged homes?
It's a $314 million grant. And in this draft, there are no funds directed toward damaged homes. As we said, from disaster 21, 80% went to damaged homes, significant percent in DR 17. But currently, the draft we put together does not have funding for disaster for homes. There may be other funds available in the future that will be available, and we are looking into those for the future funding.
Okay, the next question is from Priscilla Argueta, and she asked, why does the current disaster recovery funding home repair program limit applicants to own their home for 5 years? This is on the city council agenda for tomorrow.
I think this is if I understand this, this is in relation not to DR 24, but to funding that is received from DR 17 Harvey that we're now moving into down payment assistance. I think that's what this is mentioned.
So it's because limitations on that funding because of the storm being 4 or 5 years ago. So we want to make sure that the funding is going to the houses that were impacted during the Harvey storm. So that is the reason for the time limit on that particular pot of funding. The next question is from Sandra, and this is in Spanish. And I went ahead and put it through a translator because I can't rely on my high school Spanish. So the question is, what will happen to those of us who are still homeless because of the hurricane?
Individuals who are literally homeless because of the hurricane certainly have opportunities under our homeless response system to move forward. And I urge you to speak to one of the assessment folks at a number of our nonprofits, whether it's the Beacon downtown or Star of Hope or Salvation Army, to put your name on the list for support and help for people experiencing homelessness. That funding is ongoing. Again, a significant piece of the funding here, about 41 million, will be going to that system over the next 6 years.
Okay, the next question is from Gloria Moreno. She asks, How will the infrastructure slash generator dollars be allocated by city council district equally?
No, they are allocated for a couple of reasons in a couple of ways. One is they are put in order of importance, of significance. And again, very much so, water and sewage lift stations are really the most significant of those power generation areas. Secondly, we are looking at areas to make sure that low to moderate income areas are getting the benefit of this funding. However, when you look at these large systems, you're looking at there's a water station in Acres Home that impacts more than 5 million people. So it impacts the whole city, and that water station will have a generator put to it.
Okay, and the next question is a similar question from Chris McCarthy. He asks, when will listed generator locations be released?
I apologize, I do not have that answer. Let's see if we can get a good answer.
We have a ways to go yet. We have to go through the application process, approval process. Once that completes, work toward, implementation of the activity will begin. And there's a process that each patient will have to go through to be vetted for eligibility under HUD guidelines. And so that process will happen. So it's going to be quite some time, 6 months or more, depending on how long it takes to get approval from HUD and begin that process.
So I think it's important to recognize that, again, what today is a draft action plan. And then after that, we're taking your input, and there may very well be changes from your input. And then we go to the city council for approval of the overall plan. And then we go to HUD for approval of the plan. And then we go back to city council for approval of the individual items. So many opportunities for transparency and for input. But again, overall, when we look at these, at the generators, for example, we're still looking first toward what is most important, and second toward the LMI areas.
Okay, so next question is from Ron. Ron asked, will there be funding for roof replacement?
Mr. Ron, in this plan, there's not funding for housing repairs. Again, we hear that loud and clear, and this is an opportunity for the public to speak their piece. And we will look at those comments very closely. Again, in other storms, in DR21, there is funding coming out from that storm for home repairs. Let me also add that there has been FEMA money that has been put in to homes that have been damaged, and that was put in early on directly from the federal government to individuals. So that money has been put in place and has positively impacted citizens of Houston.
Okay, next question is from Gloria Moreno. She asks, what will the solid waste resources be used for outside of a disaster? I think she's talking about
the locations.
Yeah,
the repository. You know, that's a great question. And in looking at the Derecho and Hurricane Beryl and every hurricane, one of the problems has been that there's no place to put damaged trees and other areas. And they just, during those disasters, they've sat in very expensive and necessary vehicles. I know during the Derecho and Beryl, the city spent a lot of time trying to find places, and they requested places from the Parks Department. They looked for places in other areas, from schools. In the end, that wasn't a good idea. Having two places for these trees and vegetation really is necessary for a storm, so that we can move quickly to clear our streets for the benefit of citizens.
Okay, the next question is from Ms. Blackwell. Ms. Blackwell asked, will there be more money allocated to Houston Housing Authority to meet the growing demand for those who are low income needing a place to live?
In this fund, there are no dollars going toward the Houston Housing Authority. We are very proud of the work that we do every day, being partners with this important organization, and we're looking forward to working together on that. This week we'll be before the TDHCA asking for tax credits for the housing authority so they can build additional housing and have additional opportunities. But under this plan, there's not additional dollars.
This question comes from Tamara Bowe. Is there any funds allocated to assist families who wish to buy a home?
In this plan, in this disaster plan, dollars were not allocated for individuals looking to buy a home. As we said, this month, there'll be a new program going out in which $19 million from disaster 17, the Harvey hurricane, 19 million will go to individuals looking to buy a home as part of the down payment assistance plan.
Next question comes from Priscilla Argueta. She asks, can any of this money be used to make repairs to city park communities?
Absolutely. There are dollars in this plan to put generators into our community centers, multi-service centers, thank you, into our multi-service centers, and they will definitely be on the list that will have these additional resiliency properties. Our multi-service centers are necessary and used every day, but especially used during disasters and need to have that kind of resilience.
This next question is from Thomas Moten. He asked, will there be any consideration on this round for housing?
Mr. Moten, it is in this plan, in this draft plan, there is no funding directly for multifamily or single family housing. As we said, we're listening closely and we're thinking about this. And obviously there is a big push for this. So we're listening and we will react after having these public sessions. That's what they're for.
Next question is from Taylor Kate. Since the $315 million allocation was already approved by HUD based on the city's plan to use these funds for planning, administration, infrastructure, and mitigation, would HUD even consider allowing a reallocation of some of these funds for other eligible uses such as housing if the Housing and Community Development Department decides to revise its plan based on feedback received during the public comment period?
The clarification is that HUD has authorized us to develop an action plan for the $314 million. That's the task for today and this week and this month. Once we have completed that plan, we will ask HUD for its approval formally for our plan. And the answer is yes. They could come back and say, you need housing, or we could redraft our plan once we've heard from the public. So at any time before we give the plan to HUD, we can change the plan. And after they get back the review, we can also go back and change the plan. Why this is so important to hear back from you.
This question is from Sandra. Sandra asked, what will the city do to prevent families from becoming displaced and homeless due to disasters?
Ms. Sandra, thank you again for that comment. And it is so important that we think through this because we will have disasters and we'll continue to work on that. One of the things we'd like to do is have the disasters be less damaging. And this plan looks to that. for many reasons. One, with many dollars being spent toward making sure that there are generators, which means we're going to have safe water and sewage. We could have disasters where we would lose that, and people would lose their homes as a result of not having safe water and appropriate sewage. Those are the kind of items that we'll continue to work through. And we think this plan is a good plan to save lives, foremost save lives, secondly, save property.
Given the public comments being received, is there any chance a considerable portion of these dollars will be reallocated toward housing?
Mr. Lalou, I am pleased, we are pleased to hear these comments. They will, of course, be shared with the Mayor Whitmire's administrative team. And they will look at these and see if there need to be any changes. We will then take this plan to City Council, and it has to pass City Council before we send it to HUD. So there are many opportunities for input into this plan. And clearly there's been a groundswell of people interested in adding housing. But I will say, I want us to keep looking back at over all of our storms. So many of the dollars, 75% or more of the dollars, have gone to housing.
Sandra has another question. Will the citizens on this board be able to receive any assistance from the city?
If I'm reading this correctly, the answer is every person, every citizen should benefit by the way these dollars are being spent. In the generators, they're being spent so in the case of a storm, there's a safe place at a multi-service center that you'll have safe water to drink and sewage will be removed from your house appropriately. That citizens will be impacted by having an adequate number of ambulances and high water vehicles so that in the case of an emergency, they won't have to wait in their homes or in another place if there is an emergency. They will have their roads will be cleared more quickly with the debris repository and vegetation management. And those people who are experiencing homelessness will also benefit because they will have housing and services necessary. So overall, we think every citizen of Houston will benefit by the expenditure of this federal funds.
Stephen Goen asked, will the money released from Disaster 17 Harvey only be available to those who were homeowners at the time of the hurricane, or are all homeowners eligible to get some of the funds?
It's my understanding, and I'm looking to make sure I'm right. It's my understanding that this program is a home buyer program, and the eligibility requires you, I believe, to have lived in Houston in 2017. That's the key eligibility in this home buyer program.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Lassane.
Okay, another question from Courtney Johnson Rose. If the dollars were sent to Houston for housing, how can it be reallocated for anything else? Does that take City Council and HUD approval?
The answer is it takes City Council approval for this plan. The answer is yes. The whole plan does take HUD approval. But as noted in the earlier presentation that Ms. Warren made, these items are eligible for approval. And HUD has given us indication that they will be approved. Last call for questions.
Question from Sandra. Will those of us who have been affected by disasters and who have low incomes have the opportunity to buy a home?
Ms. Sandra, in the program that we're opening up later in the month, funded by Disaster 17, the answer is yes. We are especially looking for individuals with low incomes for the down payment assistance. As we said, you have to have lived in the Houston area in Houston in 2017, but you are eligible and encouraged to apply for that funding.
Do you have a question, Brian Escobar? What type, I think type of economic development activities would be eligible, asking for Freedmen's Count?
Under this program, we do not have traditional economic development activities under this program. However, I don't know about your individual area, but your individual area may be positively impacted by the availability of ambulances or high water vehicles or generators for public facilities.
Question from TMO. Once you rework the plan, how long will it take to get to the city council for vote?
We are hoping that we can have the plan to the city council before the end of July. And that's our plan and our hope. Obviously, if it has to be reworked dramatically, it may take some more time.
Next question is from Travis McGee. Will the money be allocated on a worst case first basis? And can the money be used for repairs?
This plan does not have funding for home repairs. And it is the focus on this plan, as in other plans, is by geography being in the low to moderate income areas and by need and with the generators by the most important and urgent needs.
That I believe Cedric answered in the chat box, so hopefully that one.
Can you hear that? There were questions that Miss Sandra asked, and then Cedric Lassane, who oversees the HCD's single family program, responded.
McGee is asking, some of our areas still have blue tarps. How soon will the program open for application?
This draft action plan does not have funding for home repairs. What I don't know is, are there existing FEMA programs from this plan that's still open? I don't know if that's it.
Next question from Annie Derry. Hearing that there are no funds for home repairs, is there a future plan to assist those vulnerable populations whose homes were impacted by Beryl and who have not received any assistance to make needed repairs?
We will continue to look at that, both in potential changes to this plan, and of course, look at that as other funding comes available from the federal government.
Okay, last call for questions. Again, seeing no questions, we want to turn it back over to Andrea.
Yes, thank you so much, Director Nichols and Amy. We certainly appreciate you, and we also appreciate all of our virtual callers, questions, comments. There will be other opportunities for you. I'm going to end with a few final announcements, okay? Let's move on. Before we conclude, let's review how to submit additional public comments. A public notice was published on May 23, 2025. In addition, a draft copy of the Action Plan for Disaster Recovery 2024 Derecho and Hurricane Beryl was posted to the city's disaster recovery website at houstontx.gov/hcdrecovery/on that date. The city will be accepting public comments through June 22nd, 2025. These comments can be submitted by mail, email, or voicemail. Your feedback is essential to shaping the final plan. For more information or simply just to stay in touch, I've listed our address, phone number, and website, which has the option to sign up for email updates, or please like and follow us on all of our social media platforms at Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I will now turn it back over to Director Nichols for any final remarks.
Thank you. I too want to thank you for your time, attention, and participation today. We appreciate and need your continued engagement in helping shape a stronger, more resilient future for Houston. I'd like to just go through a few items just as to go through to memorialize what we spoke about today. The City of Houston is trying to take a strategic approach to disaster recovery while continuing overall to advance housing recovery and access through targeted programs. Mayor Whitmire and city leadership are focused on investments that could address the most widespread impact from Hurricane Beryl and the Derecho, such as power outages, extreme heat, debris removal, and access to critical public facilities. And examples of those critical investments will include backup power for water systems and fire stations, multi-service center upgrades so people will have a safe place to shelter, emergency preparedness and mitigation improvements, public services, including addressing homelessness. These infrastructure-focused projects will help shield residents from future disaster impacts. Federal dollars are often the most restrictive to spend. Prioritizing these funds first ensures we can tackle high needs area with the greatest flexibility. On housing, it's important to note that the city has prioritized housing and disaster recovery, investing nearly $775 million, with over 80% awarded to funding directed at housing-related programs. And most importantly, we are still in the draft planning phase. The City of Houston's Housing and Community Development Department will be hosting 2 more virtual meetings, one on June 12th from 3 to 5, and one on June 17th in the evening when people are available after work. And we welcome all residents and community stakeholders to attend, and most importantly, to participate. Currently, look for over the next 30 days, 2 major programs being actually put in place, not just funded, but put in place. The Homebuyer Assistance Program 2.0 from Disaster 17, which has an initial allocation of $19 million, and the Winter Storm Uri Home Repair Program from Disaster 21, Winter Storm Uri, which has an initial allocation of over $40 million. Again, we appreciate your support and thoughts, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the near future. I'll turn it back over to Andrea or Alan. Again, I want to thank my team here at HCD, Amy Conley, Angela Simon, and the rest of our team who produced such an excellent program. And again, community development is part of our name here. And what we're doing in this moment is taking in the community's input in this important plan. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our presentation, and we will see you here again. That's this Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. virtually. And you can find out all that information on our website. Thank you again.